Peter Buckles. How's it going, brother?
Doing great.
Sweet. I appreciate you coming on the Veterans Voice podcast. You're pretty big in the community here in Colorado Springs. You're a sponsor at Mount Carmel. You were a staff sergeant in the military. Super successful individual. I look up to you already, and I just want to ask you a bunch of questions.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm excited to be here.
For sure. Well, where did your military career start? Let's start there.
Sure. So my military career started with my dad and grandpa being in the military. Isn't that kind of how we all start, right?
Mine were too.
So it's kind of like we're not forced in, but this is what you're going to do.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, I'll do it, right? Cool. So I ended up joining. I really had a couple options, being an MP or a supply.
Okay.
So I was like, let's try this whole MP thing. It sounds good.
All right.
So, I went to basic, went to our first duty station, and it was here at Fort Carson.
Cool.
We loved it. I love the military. It had its hard times, it had its good times. So we stayed in for a couple years. I say we, me and my wife. And then we ended up, wasn't something I wanted to continue. I wanted to, there's more out there for veterans, and that's what I wanted to explore.
Yeah, you said we. It's definitely a we endeavor.
For sure.
So you're an MP. What were some of your duty stations?
Yeah, so I was, of course, like I said, here. I was stationed in Korea for a year.
Oh, cool.
And then I was at MDW, Military District of Washington.
Yeah.
So I was at INSCOM, Intelligence and Supply, or Intelligence and Security Command.
Right.
So that was fun.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about Korea. I never got the chance to go.
Yeah, so I had a good assignment. I was in Yongsan.
Okay.
So I was at the main hub.
Yep.
Just being an MP, patrolling, learning some of the field stuff.
So you were the guy catching guys coming in late and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I know there's all kinds of rules over there. But that's cool. So now, like I said, you're a pretty big name in Colorado Springs. What have been some of your business endeavors coming out of the military?
Yeah, so, it's funny how I got into the car business, really. We wanted to go buy a car. I was still in the military, and we went to this car dealership, and it was crazy, right? They had balloons, they had music, it was crazy. And it's like, man, this atmosphere, it's like, this is what I want to do.
Cool.
So it was funny. After we bought the car, I said, hey, who's the big boss? And they're like, there's a general manager. His name's Paul. It's like, I want to talk to Paul. So Paul came over. I looked at him. I said, Paul, I'm going to work for you in a year when I get out of the military. He's like, all right, sure, kid.
And that was here in Colorado Springs?
No. Sorry, this was in Arizona when we got out.
Oh, cool.
And I looked at Paul and I said, I'm going to work for you in a year. And he's like, all right, sure, kid, whatever. Literally within a year, I was knocking on his door. I said, do you remember me?
Yeah.
I said, I'm ready for a job.
Was it plus or minus a year or so?
Yeah.
Spot on.
Right, yeah, pretty much spot on.
There you go.
And ended up getting in the car business and haven't looked back since.
How's the car business? I know my father was in the car business. He had a company that sold, all the products, all the insurance products to dealerships. So like paint repair, tire coverage, extended warranties, things like that. And,
that's cool.
He had a lot of people that worked for him, and it was a pretty chaotic environment. But going from the military, how did that kind of transfer over?
So really, we have a lot of successful people to transfer from the military into the car business. Because I don't want to say it's the same by any means, but you got to show up on time. You got to look good. You got to feel good. You got to speak well. You got to present yourself well, carry yourself well, and you got to listen to the customer, show them what they're looking for, and hopefully at the end of the day you're selling them a car. So it does transfer over really well. So if any vets out there are thinking about the car business, or maybe have never thought about the car business, I'm telling you, we get a lot of vets in with all of Phil Long, because Phil Long's a really strong veteran. Auto group, we just are. A lot of us veterans are part of Phil Long because that's how Jay was, right?
Right, yep.
Jay and Phil.
Yep.
So we work really well with the veterans transferring out of the military.
Yeah. I know that's a popular transition from military to car business, whether it's a salesman or up to your GM level. That's cool to hear that transfers over. What other stuff? I know you were, this is Colorado specific now, but Joey's Pizza built and sold.
Yeah, so after I got out of the military, I wanted more business aspects. So I went to college just for a little bit to learn about business. So I went to University of Phoenix because, of course, the GI Bill paid for it all. So we wanted to try that. And, I wanted to get into restaurants. I thought that would be a good avenue, which, of course, now I kick myself. I'm like, that's, it's hard.
I was going to say, I got a follow-on question.
Yeah, the restaurant business is difficult.
Yeah.
So we ended up buying our first pizza spot. It was a small one. And we ended up growing that to 3 pizza joints. And then after the kids said they want nothing to do with it, they're all going their separate ways. We're like, okay, it's time to sell. So we ended up selling them just last October.
Okay.
So I'm sure a lot of veterans out here have went to Joey's because they're all over the place.
Yeah, for sure. I've seen it. I've never eaten at one, but I've seen them.
Yeah.
And then today, owner of Olde World Bagel. We have a lot of local listeners. I love this place. Tell me about that journey.
Yeah, so we bought it quite a few Februarys ago. I think 3 years ago now. We ended up, I knew the owner, and they're just, of course, because restaurant business, right? So I knew the previous owner, Ken. He said, hey, I'm getting old. I want to retire. How about you buy this? And we made the numbers work. And, me and my wife ended up buying it, purchasing it from him. And it's been a good thing. And now, my wife and her sister are working a bagel shop down in Fountain. Okay. It's going to open up January 1st.
Oh, nice.
So
where in Fountain?
It's going to be right next to the Safeway, a couple doors down.
Okay.
So it's kind of their endeavor together, which should be cool.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, I have a family member who goes to that Kia that you manage, and I go to Olde World Bagel all the time. I've had a great experience at both facilities. So your employees, the way you're leading these places are just, very well done. How did you get to that point, would you say? Because it hasn't been like an overnight journey. You're a businessman, entrepreneur, and you're leading, the best car dealership in Colorado Springs. But has anything kind of transferred from maybe military, some college to today?
Yeah, so quite a bit. And, every time, I go back, when we bought Joey's, it was failing, right? They were going under, so we got it cheap. And, bringing the military and business thinking it, what makes a successful business, the military does have a lot to do with it. Taking care of your people, kind of like sergeants do with their privates when they first come in. Making your people are accountable. You got to hold your people accountable with the everyday mundane tasks, and it works. And getting the right people and hiring the right people has made me successful in all the journeys I've done.
Right.
I mean, look, I'm sitting here with you today, and I'm not managing those places, right?
Yeah.
I don't ever really go into the bagel shop. Maybe a couple times a week just to grab something to eat.
Right.
But we have great managers, and that's a way, or how to manage. I don't know what I'm trying to say here. To own a business is to get the best people to work for you. Doesn't mean you need to pay them the most. You just get the right people that you really jive with, and know that they'll take care of your business when you're not there, and it will be successful.
Yeah, you have a vision as the manager, as the leader of the family, essentially. How do you make sure your employees see that vision as well?
Yeah, well, that's like the military, right? With the captain or the first sergeant bringing it down to the soldiers. Hey, this is our mission.
Right.
This is just what it is. And you got to hold your people accountable, right? The first sergeants hold the platoon sergeants accountable. Platoon sergeants hold the squad leaders accountable. Squad leaders hold the privates.
Yeah.
Kind of the same, right?
Yeah.
Us as the owners, we hold the GM accountable. We don't go to every individual employee. It wouldn't work, right? We don't do that. We got to hold that GM accountable. Then the GM holds the shift managers accountable, right? And then the shift leader, or whatever you want to call it, shift manager, they hold the everyday employees accountable. And that's what it really comes down to. And then if you see those everyday employees messing up or not saying something, or saying something sideways to a customer where it's like, ooh, this doesn't work right, you bring that to the highest level, and it kind of trickles down.
Yeah, it's kind of like a military chain of command or NCO support channel, just exactly the same.
It's identical to the military as it is in the civilian world, unless I'm just doing it wrong. But that's the way I do it.
I think your resume says you're doing it right.
Right, exactly. Right.
Yeah. Well, entrepreneurship and business management is on a lot of veterans' agendas. But I feel like, a lot of veterans get out of the military and they feel like they're in a rut, or they feel like they don't have purpose. I do a lot of work with some of the veterans over at UCCS, and a lot of them are telling me that. They just don't feel like they have purpose. But in a way, you were not only, but a staff sergeant. So you were leading soldiers. Even, an E5 or an E4 is leading soldiers to an extent. But if you get out of the military and you go from a leadership position like a staff sergeant to someone who's being told what to do on a daily basis, not making their own schedule, not leading anyone, it could feel like you don't have any kind of purpose. I know I've run into that. But I think, that would be a word of advice to veterans seeking entrepreneurship as they get out. Is it, you might feel like you have no purpose because you're not in charge of people. You're not leading a mission because that's what you're used to doing in the military. You resonate with that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you got to jump in and find something like that, or at least, it's kind of wherever you really start, right? I don't think you can jump out of the military and then just go be a business owner and now you're running all these people. It doesn't work like that, right? You got to find something you really want to do, and maybe even just get in almost the bottom level, just start to learn it. And at some point, you're going to be good enough where you're going to start running people, running the show, being a general manager, maybe even being an owner partner like I am of the Kia store, right? We've gotten so good now I kind of own the place.
Yeah.
So it's good. And it's out there for the military. It really is.
Yeah. You just can't smoke your employees like you could in the military.
No, unfortunately, you can't yell at them. You can't cuss at them because then you'll end up at the dealer board or something like that where you don't want to be.
Yeah, it's funny. USAA is sponsor of the show. They do a annual, what do they call it? Like drill sergeant day. They have all their employees, the local building here, they have all their employees show up at 3 a.m. and then they have drill sergeants come out and they run them through like a first day of basic training day so that they understand their client base.
Sure.
I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't know if my employees would enjoy that.
Yeah, probably not. So yeah, if you have, let's say you're chatting with a veteran who's interested in entrepreneurship, maybe 6 months before they get out of the military, where would you say they get started?
Yeah, so I do that quite a bit actually.
Cool.
So I'm part of Mount Carmel. So I actually sit on the Mount Carmel board. The Mount Carmel has a really good, it's called the VBOC program. That's a business, military getting out, trying to be business owners. We have classes. They teach you that stuff. I did a lot of YouTube, a lot of Googling, how to run a business, how to even start a business. Because, military getting out, we have a bunch of great ideas, right? We just don't know how to hone them in
For sure.
or how to do it. But there's a lot of resources, especially here at Mount Carmel, that can help.
Yeah. VBOC is a great resource. We just had him on the previous episode talking about some upcoming resume classes and things like that. You said something that I definitely resonated with. It's hard when you get out of the military to focus on maybe one thing because you're kind of lost. Like you spent how many years? 8 years in the military?
Yeah,
I spent
8.
about 13. And I sure was trying like 3 to 4 different things at once because I was like, I don't know how to be a civilian. Last time I was a civilian was 18, so 17. Now I'm 31. What do I do? So I just started doing a lot of things, and none of them were really sticking. But like you're saying, I really had to hone in what I felt like I was excelling at. And it sounds like you've done the same.
Yeah, so it's not easy. We go through, I want to say all the positive stuff about the veterans jumping in the car business, but then there's a lot of not working out either. So we hire a lot, and then they'll come to me a few months in saying, this is just not what I want. This is not what I feel. I said, it's okay. Doesn't mean you're a bad person. Just this is not working for you.
Right.
So sometimes it does take a veteran quite a while, 6 months, a year, to find something that they really resonate, something that kind of gets them out of bed every morning, if that's the best way to put it.
Yeah, that's 6 months to a year, maybe even 2 years.
Right.
But then it takes even longer to feel what you felt at your 8-year mark in the military because you got to build up that consistency and the, all those feelings of feeling like you're attached to this position.
Yeah.
We always do funny stories on the podcast, and feel free to share any kind of story. But you got a story from like a time in the military that maybe only veterans would understand?
Man, not that I can think of off the top of my head. I had a pretty easy job. I mean, being an MP, right?
Mm-hmm. You got to have some funny stories from Korea as an MP.
Oh, okay, yeah. So there was this. It's called Itaewon. It's this big strip that the military would go to every night, right, to drink and just get out of work and go have fun. This is where we all went, right? So, man, me being in the Army, we would just clash with the Marines or clash with the Navy or whatever. All the services would clash, and they usually would do it at Itaewon. Mm-hmm. So as military, we would have to go with the Katusas, which were our Korean counterparts, and we'd have to go break up all the fights.
Oh, man.
So they would come in the bars, and they would fight like crazy, throw chairs, and we would have to go in and pick up the pieces.
Yeah.
So that was almost every weekend. So I don't know if there was ever one good story, but, man, they used to fight like crazy.
Man, that's funny.
And I'm a little guy, so it wasn't easy for me.
I was going to say, it's got to be...
I was scrappy.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's got to be a weird feeling being in Korea, a foreign country, breaking up fights. Like, it's a little hairy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and the Koreans are a lot smaller than us.
Right.
So they don't want to jump in the mix.
Yeah.
They want nothing to do with that. Mm-hmm. So we had to go in and break up the fights.
Yeah, for sure. Well, cool, man. It was great chatting with you, getting to know you a little bit. Just wanted to highlight again, you're a huge partner of Mount Carmel.
Yeah.
You sponsored our Angel Tree event, which is a huge ordeal.
Yep.
Shannon just covered that in our previous episode. Go check that out. They're doing amazing things with that. But yeah, thanks for coming on the Veterans Voice podcast, sharing some business advice, life advice, just overall leadership advice. Any closing comments for any listeners?
Yeah, if you're getting out of the military, transitioning, or guess what? Maybe you've been out for a long time. Maybe you've been out for 4 or 5 years, and you're still kind of struggling, trying to fit in or trying to figure out what you want to do. Mount Carmel Veteran Service Center, if you haven't been here, if you haven't checked them out, you need to come. Just walk in. We have people here.
Absolutely.
We have people that will at least talk to you. Maybe gives you some ideas. I still need ideas. Even me and you just talking before the podcast, sparking some ideas here. Just another voice, Maybe we can help with whatever you need. Mental health, we definitely deal with mental health, all kinds of cool stuff. Mount Carmel's a great organization. If you haven't checked them out, you need to.
Yeah, there's a 3-man team just waiting at the front doors for veterans to come in and answering phone calls. It's a very welcoming environment.
And they'll talk to you about anything.
Anything.
If you just want to bullshit, come on in.
Come on in.
Right.
All right. Well, I appreciate you, Pete.
Of course, it was fun.
Yeah.